show you what they're doing. I don't know, I think things are covered. You know, these guys are setting up an art table. If you like to do that for oh, that's beautiful.
Oh, good.
All the things people wrote on the tribute book.
But I do, and I did the Natalie.
Pretty soon.
Yeah.
Beautiful. It's amazing. Isn't that amazing?
Are you in Red Bluff or Chico? Ready, that's right. I couldn't remember. Yeah.
Style. We're going to try to
But I met her. Yeah. Well, I finally.
Oh, what a joyful hubbub this has been. A lot of greeting. So welcome.
Janet, Naomi, and I, and all of Natalie's family want to welcome and thank you for coming today. To remember, to mourn, and to celebrate our mother, mother-in-law, grandmother, great-grandmother, aunt, Natalie Rogers. My sister Naomi and I have tried to gather people today who can represent and share something about the different arenas of Mom's life, though there are many more people who we would have liked to have speak, and aspects of her life we have surely left out. But each of you here carries some part of the whole of Natalie's experience, and it is in that way that we maintain her spirit in the world. And though I have known her for 61 years, I have seen her only from a single lens. So today I look forward to learning more about her than I knew yesterday. I miss her, and I thank her for giving me this one precious life. Good afternoon, everyone. It's really great to see some familiar faces out there, and thank you all for joining us. My name is Sue Ann Heron, and I'm so honored to be invited to speak here by Francis and Janet and Naomi. They have asked me to give a brief overview of Natalie's amazing life. That's one hard job. I've known Natalie for 12 years, and 6 of those years I spent writing her biography. She is my mentor, my colleague, and my very dear friend. She's had a profound effect on my life personally. I miss her. In the short time I have, I would like to share an overview of the significant influences and important themes in Natalie's life. What Natalie called the threads of her life, what she deeply cared about, and how she chose to live her life. How has Natalie lived her life? The seemingly simple yet deeply profound answer is she lived it powerfully and compassionately her way. She lived it in a kinesthetic sense through her body and also through her intellect, her intuition, through expressive arts and self-reflection. Natalie learned how to connect with her body wisdom from studying dance with Anna Halperin, and her life was lived bodily, intuitively, fluidly, and as creatively as her art emerged, her figure sculpted, her body danced, her feminism flourished, and her heart loved. Her compassion healed, and as high as her imagination could take her. This was Natalie's way. What were some of the important influences on Natalie's life? Well, through 22 interviews, I culled a few things. Abraham Maslow's early influence on her life choices, that you can have a career and a family too, really spoke to Natalie. Her master's work at Brandeis set the stage for her life's work. Her early family life and raising 3 daughters brought much joy to her. Her early married life with Larry Fuchs, she said, were some of her happiest times. Her early feminist influences changed the way she saw herself in the world.
the development of her unique approach to person-centered expressive arts therapy, and her creative connection process. The workshops on person-centered approach with her father, Carl, and how that changed her relationship with him was a big influence on Natalie. Carl's view of Natalie was changed from one of what he would affectionately call a feisty daughter to one of what he wrote in his inscription to her in 1977, one of my best friends and challenging and inspiring colleague. What were some important aspirations in Natalie's life? To be her own person, someone who is recognized and valued for her own work and not valued because she's the daughter of Carl Rogers. To have her work with PCEAT viewed as her own unique contribution to and enhancement of Carl's person-centered approach. To empower others, especially women, through her person-centered expressive arts therapy work. To promote conflict resolution and world peace through the use of expressive arts work internationally, and she accomplished all of these goals. Some of you may not know that involvement in social activism and social justice has been a long-standing theme in her life. It began at the early age of 13 years old. In Natalie's own words, she wrote, "Age 13, I'm at a Quaker work camp in Appalachia. I'm helping to build a cabin to create a summer retreat for the coal miners' children. I love the work and the camaraderie and exposure to new worlds. Age 14, I'm hired as a counselor for the same camp. I am the youngest. Age 15, the headline of the newspaper read, City High School girls work on farms. 20 girls, including me, live in an old schoolhouse for the summer to do volunteer work for farmers. Age 17, my scrapbook has a clip from the Stevens College World Federalists to promote and strengthen the United Nations. Age 19, I attended the conference of the United World Federalists. I was so committed to having peace, no more war, that I taught myself how to give public talks and learn the political issues. This changed my life, she wrote. I was hired by the headquarters of UWF to be the National Student Secretary. I walked into the New York office with the student chairman, Larry Fuchs. Larry and I worked together, fell in love, and got married on June 5th, 1950. So at age 22, Natalie was happily married to a very charismatic leader. More social activism. In 1984, Natalie flew to Micronesia to be an anti-nuclear activist on the boat Pacific Peacemaker. In her words, she said, to help the island folks resist the US pressure to become a port for nuclear submarines. End quote. More work for peace. In 2006, Natalie co-facilitated a successful workshop titled Bringing Israeli and Palestinian Women Together for a Peaceful Future. During an important developmental decade in her life between ages of 40 and 50, Natalie learned about her own consciousness by diving down into her interior landscape to explore her life more deeply. She did this in many ways, through the arts, movement, and writing, which resulted in a powerful transformation of her view of herself in the world and she emerged as a stronger woman, an enlightened feminist, a promoter of equality for women. She stepped out of her father's shadow and became his colleague and friend. She developed a global vision for her work and became a co-founder with her daughter Frances of the nonprofit institute Pacetti. So later, at age 73, Natalie had a dream, which she said, quote, gave me clues as to where I'm going now. Here is her dream. I'm at a group meeting or conference and go to a large swimming pool early in the morning. No one seems to be around. I take off my nightgown and swim nude. Next scene, I'm in a tree about a half a mile high, looking down at the Caribbean shoreline and azure blue waters. It's a gorgeous scene below. I'm hanging on, nude again, and saying to myself that I want to let go. My question to myself, is the water below deep enough? I do let go. And I start falling. But instead of plummeting, I am floating down slowly, as though a parachute were on my back. It takes a long time to float down. I begin to dance and move in the sky. It's fun. I stretch and reach and see a cloud go by, something else like a jellyfish. It's floating down too. I look below and see the water gradually coming. The mystery of the dream remains, but the sense of letting go and floating through the rest of my life appeals to me. The end is just another beginning. And so her journey continues. When asked at age 80, what matters to you most right now? Natalie said, the world, the planet, my daughters, my grandchildren. I think that's settling down to what really matters, my family, my friends, and the world. I'm trying to make time for each one of those. Natalie gave me this poem for my biography titled The Way It Is by William Stafford. There is a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what things you are pursuing. You have to explain about the thread. But it's hard for others to see. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen, people get hurt or die, you suffer and get old. Nothing you do can stop time's unfolding, but you don't ever let go of the thread. Natalie explained to me what this meant to her. The reason I gave it to you was because the last sentence, but you never let go of the thread. The threads of my life have been social justice, women's issues, creativity, and the person-centered philosophy. These were important to her. These were the threads of her life. Natalie has held on to these deeply meaningful threads throughout her lifetime, and she has lovingly and passionately woven them into the magic tapestry of her life. Looking back on her tapestry, she sees in herself, quote, inner peace, balance, and wisdom. In spite of, or perhaps because of these complexities in her life, Natalie ultimately lived the life she wanted her way. Full of risk, adventure, passion, love, teaching, art, dance, spirituality, compassion, making a difference in others' lives, and carrying on the Rogerian legacy. She has not only kept the Rogerian torch aglow, she has ignited the global torch for others to carry forward in the world. So in closing, I'd like to say Natalie's was a life well lived and a person well loved, whose healing work around the world made such a difference to so many of us. Thank you, Natalie.
Hello. My name is Shar Horning. Natalie and I became sisters over the nearly 40 years we knew each other. Fun, pain, love, friendship. I first saw her at UC Santa Cruz when she was teaching with Carl in 1977. She was tall, like me. Who was this woman? We met through a mutual friend. With lots in common, I liked her right away. And we shared our loves, our needs, and our work with people in many deep ways. I recall tears and laughter, and mostly comfort, just comfort being around each other. We traveled together to Ashland, Oregon, to Juneau, Alaska, to the Sierra Nevada mountains and the Pacific beaches, to small coffee houses and big fancy dinners, to vision quests and crowded events. After one vision quest, Natalie awoke in the morning with a monster dream and a fearful drawing. We sat on the ground and she cried as she told me the dream. I listened, bewildered, and found and felt some of my own fears. It was pretty scary. I was trembling. I had had symbol drawings of my own that shook my life and changed it. And I wondered if this was one of hers. When confusing family relationships were sometimes anxious for me, she listened so clearly that I had to reach deep inside myself. Those unspoken parts came home to me, and I learned so much through her, just being near and wondering along with me how things were. Adventurous, that took us both to Ashland, to what I now call my PhD in illusion. We sat on a Mount Ashland hillside watching for UFOs with people who were forming a Findhorn-type community. We laughed at ourselves later. Didn't work for me, and it didn't work for Natalie. Quote, "Here are some art materials. I'll be in the kitchen," she said. I had just arrived from my husband's death. I was a mess. And the art that came through me was so right for just then. We talked later. Her acute awareness and simple directness went deep and opened me up that afternoon. It was so important for me in my life. This is one of the gifts she gave me, and there were many. There's a bunch of us similar-aged women who we call the Crones. Maybe some of you have heard about it. Natalie pulled together this group with Mimi around, I don't know, when she was traveling so much, she needed a local group. I was invited to join that group when I moved to Santa Rosa. We met monthly around a meal, often at Natalie's kitchen table. Jackie Leffler's here too. Hi, Jackie. We were 7, and now we're 3. We shared secrets and fears and funny happenings and cheered each other on. Natalie asked us each to say what we thought happened after we die. And we each answered it from our own places. I ached with Natalie through her increasing pain. Once she asked me if I could listen and really hear her. Looking into her eyes, I cried, and she cried. Once, after a huge expressive arts program realignment, she told me, "I guess I know now why I didn't die 2 years ago. I guess I needed to be here for the changes." Last August, I was with her at a Silmar as a companion. She knew, and I realized that this was her last expressive arts group of students that she would meet and be with. Natalie always took me deeper into my own awareness of truth. I know my visits eased her pain a bit. I knew her as a friend, a deep friend, and she knew me. So it went both ways. She is my sister. I miss her. Yet, for me, she is nearby in the essence and the sacredness of the mystery of our being human, truly human. Get out of here.
Hard to follow. That was so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Uh-oh. Hi. Good afternoon. I'm Naomi, one of Natalie's daughters. It really means a lot to me to see you all here today, and like Frances said, to see and experience Mom through all of your eyes and your love for her. It really lifts my heart. It's hard to know what to say when your mother dies. It really feels huge. There's that day-to-day loss. Can't pick up the phone to chat. The empty place at Thanksgiving. Worrying about her, and then realizing I don't need to worry about her anymore. The foreverness of it all feels really cellular. The person who held me in her womb, and then her arms, and then her heart is gone. And then I sense that cellular presence as well. The gifts that people are speaking about, the gifts she's given me, that are in me and that are part of me. A gesture I make, a way of seeing the world. An old familiar expression, and I think, that's Mom. Now, Most people would agree that our relationships with our parents are sometimes complicated. There are the gifts that maybe I'd like to give back. Long toes, weak bones, being a little too judgmental. The challenges, the wounds, the things that I wish had been different are all true too. But today, I want to talk about the gifts that I treasure. And I want to start by saying, Mom, wherever you are, I'm really sorry I didn't express my appreciation and gratitude and love more when you were here. I know you knew that I loved you, and saying the words matter, so I want to say them now. Mom loved beauty. Beauty in nature, beautiful art, a beautifully set table. She loved art from around the world and had a Japanese garden in our front yard in our suburban home in Massachusetts, which my friends thought was really cool and exotic, but seemed quite normal to me. And on the weekends, when Mom wasn't taking me to dance class or theater rehearsal, she would set up art projects. There would be a big easel in the playroom with paint set out, or tons of magazines and scissors and glue for a collage, or a big chunk of clay to mold and squish and shape into whatever came forth. And always there was music playing. I soaked up the knowledge that aesthetics are important, creating is important, and expressing myself authentically is important. Thank you, Mom. Growing up, our home was a refuge for many of my friends. It was the place they would come to when things were hard, and where they could feel accepted and appreciated and safe. Mom would listen to their problems, give them encouragement, and let them be themselves. One of my best friends wrote to me after Mom's death, sharing, "When I was 15 and you and I were best friends, your mom saved me in a very dark time by opening a window into realness I longed for but did not know existed." As teenagers struggling with identity and authenticity, she gave us the constant message that it was okay to be ourselves. Mom showed me the importance of loyalty and steadfastness, of being present for the people we love, a cherished treasure. As you heard, social justice in action was an ever-present theme for Mom. Sometimes it was discussions about race or poverty, and often it was about peace and justice. One cold October in 1969, she packed us up and we took the train to Washington, D.C. to protest the Vietnam War. I remember the train being crowded with mostly young people, piled into seats or sitting in the aisles, backpacks everywhere. People were singing, and there was an excitement and an urgency in the air, and a little fear. But I knew that what we were doing was important. Speaking out was important. It is a beautiful gift to know that speaking our truth is important, even in the presence of fear. And of course, Mom had a great spirit of adventure. We lived in Hawaii before it was a state, and then we were off to the Philippines in the early 60s with the first wave of Peace Corps volunteers, hoping to create a better world. And once we were grown, Mom set off on lots of adventures to explore, to teach, and make lasting, loving relationships across the globe. And so many of you are here. Her adventures took her to South America, Israel, China, Korea, and so many other places. She was a seeker, and each experience brought new insights, greater understanding, and deeper meaning to her life. One of her great adventures was her canoe trip in the Alaskan wilderness. She was 67 years old and was nervous about the physical challenges, but she was traveling with friends, and that was reassuring. They took a seaplane with all their gear from Fairbanks and landed in the Nelson Walker Lake in the middle of the Arctic National Park and set off for a week of paddling across the Noatak River. It was an adventure she loved to share with family, with stories about caribou, grizzly bears, and fresh fish from the river. This gift, taking risks, being courageous, And exploring the edges of our boundaries is a lasting legacy for which I am deeply grateful. Even in her final days, Mom said she was curious about what was next. She spoke about being ready for her journey home. Her last journal entry showed 3 question marks in bright colors floating on a page. She was open to her next adventure. Thank you, Mom. Thank you for these experiences and these values, strength of character, as well as many more sweet, tender, feisty, creative, adventurous moments, large and small, that we share. I love you. In her final months, Mom loved to go to the beach and sit and watch the waves. So I'd like to share a poem called Gone From My Sight by Henry Van Dyke that I think captures her sense of what her final journey would hold. I am standing upon the seashore. A ship at my side spreads her white sails to the moving breeze and starts for the blue ocean. She is an object of beauty and strength. I stand and watch her until at length she hangs like a speck of white cloud just where the sea and sky come to mingle with each other. Then someone at my side says, "There, she's gone." Gone where? Gone from my sight. That is all. She is just as large in mass, tall and spar as she was when she left my side. And she is just as able to bear her load of living freight to her destined port. Her diminished size is in me, not her. And just at the moment when someone says, "There, she is gone," there are other eyes watching her coming, and other voices ready to take up the glad shout, "Here she comes." And that is dying.
kaja asebalite sira janya janya anabadondola ulumi filoye ne masama lena sama londo beka yiri ni turubi londo yiri sumaba koloni sembiche lonja mino wenye konetara lo feronye finini minye neosa konetara damandala esanu mule ninye neosa netara fandala me warije ninye neosa oye sirata ye oye sirani yoro ye oye ne kasirata ye falo kugere mangoyaba maya dalilu ala yodi sirama duba minji to sirale ola jola joli fanga ala yodi sirama ni bito konolu ilanyilanta sira kanto kono mambolo fele isigi baba ninja to jegelu ilanyilanta sira kanto bafaro mami delila jegelu la kanta canto mogolu mambalu tarala alu lula lula canta simbo ma sobo lula canta oye sirani yoroye oye ne kasirata ye sira polo ni yoro file oye sirani yoro ye oye ne kasirata ye sira fono ni yoro file oye ne kasirata ye oye sirani yoro ye follow the arrow.
para la gente del campo, para la gente de aquí. Guajira de monte adentro, donde nace el tomellí, el sinsonte, el colibrí, el sunsun y el ruiseñor, de donde crece la palma, el marabú y el jiquí, donde me siento mejor, tierra donde yo nací.
Mi campiña yo soy feliz, mi Guajira vivo yo aquí. En mi campiña yo soy feliz, mi Guajira vivo yo aquí.
Un día me enamoré de una preciosa guajira, a la cual le di mi vida, mi tiempo y mi corazón. Casi perdí la razón, de noche ya no dormía y le cantaba de día, con gusto y con emoción. Y después de muchos años yo le sigo dando amor.
En mi campiña yo soy feliz, mi Guajira vivo yo aquí. En mi campiña yo soy feliz, mi Guajira vivo yo aquí.
Ponle sabor
I don't know about you, but I felt my life flashing before my eyes. There was so many of those photographs that just brought up moments in my own life and my journey that I, for 40 years, shared with Natalie. I was just thinking that how important family and community was for Natalie. And here we all are. I know there's people all over the world who are part of this community, and people on those photographs who were part of this community. And if anybody, all communities need some kind of core attractor, and certainly our community, one of those core attractors was Natalie. All of us had some kind of connection and some kind of memory. My name is Maureen O'Hara, and Natalie and I were colleagues and friends for over 40 years. Naomi, Francis, Janet, and your family, thank you so much for including me in this celebration of your remarkable mom and grandma and great-grandma and aunt. I miss her already. I miss the opportunities for a quick check-in and the occasional long, delicious conversations about the things that we both cared about and we were struggling with or wanted to share and were happy about. I always knew that in a conversation with Natalie, I didn't have to struggle to be understood. I could be honest about my feelings, including those shadowy feelings that I might hide from other people, such as rage, terror, despair, lust, those things that I could have kept aside. But no matter what was going on, or if I was handling a situation well or badly, she would cherish me for just being who I am. Over the years, we accompanied each other's different journeys, doing what we could to support each other through the losses and the triumphs. One of the things I'm the most proud of is that while I was president of Saybrook, I had the good fortune and good sense to bring Natalie's person-centered expressive arts program to the university so that new generations could carry this work forward. We first met in 1974 at University of Santa Cruz in a workshop that she created with her father Carl, a workshop that actually was to change my life. At the time, Carl was supervising my PhD dissertation, and although he was the impetus for me attending the workshop, it was Natalie who set my young radical heart afire. Quite honestly, as a feminist, I was skeptical about client-centered therapy. In fact, I was skeptical about therapy altogether. Coming from a working-class north of England family, it seemed to me that unless we understood the relationships between politics, power, and personhood, therapy could just as easily contribute to maintaining systems of injustice as it could help with a remedy. Ahead of her dad, and pretty much his teacher on this, Natalie was keenly aware of the political implications of the person-centered approach. She had an exquisitely tuned antenna for power dynamics that makes space for some voices and silences others. When I met Natalie in that workshop, I knew that I'd found my tribe. She and I had the same desire to push the boundaries of Carl's work to include social justice, feminism, sexuality, peace, racism, class, the environment, spirituality, and of course the role of the arts in growth and transformation. Natalie was more than just a healer and a teacher. Natalie was a cultural leader. She was making a difference in the culture as a whole. As I saw her in action, I realized that she shared my view that when it comes to social change, intention is not enough. If you want to make a real difference, it's not only what you do, it's also how you do it, and to whose benefit. This was as true in her personal life as it was in her professional practice. She never shied away from confrontation when she saw injustice if she thought she could make a difference. She recognized the importance of empathy and love, but she also understood power and action.
and Natalie was willing to speak truth to power. With her mentorship, I gradually found my own voice as a woman, a practitioner, a leader, and a writer. And as others have described, Natalie found hers in the expressive arts. Together, our team, which included Carl and several other colleagues, developed and approached a large group facilitation, which is now used across the world in person-centered groups. Working alongside Natalie, her empathic, fierce honesty was an inspiration for me. She was my model of a strong woman who balanced her feminist rage and her deeply spiritual, unconditional love. She called out injustice and oppression at the same time as she celebrated life. Her trust in the universal creative force was unwavering. Natalie brought an impeccable integrity to everything she did, more than anyone I ever met. As we prepared for a workshop, for instance, the staff might deliberate for hours over every decision, taking exquisite care to make sure we were walking our talk. Sometimes this attention to process would frustrate Carl immensely, but gradually he came to see, thanks to Natalie, that in human affairs there are no small decisions. Every decision has consequences that we cannot perceive. So we better make them with integrity as best we can. These workshops were laboratories in participatory democracy, and what I learned working alongside her became part of how I now see the world. It's part of my work in the world. It's part of my being the kind of person that I grew up to be in Natalie's presence. Let me also say that in those days it wasn't always easy for Natalie, as a woman and a daughter, to be seen and heard beyond her very famous father. It could have been easy for her to ride on his coattails, but she refused the easy road. She chose the path of art, creativity, and authentic action. And now more than ever, her expanded view of what it means to be a person can still enliven a world that sometimes seems to be darkening. Natalie's expanded view of our potential, of our human possibility, needs to be part of what we all take forward to try to enliven the world. It was Natalie's courage to define herself and her work in her own terms that lit the path for me to do the same. I had the good fortune to speak to her as she prepared for what she called her journey home. Despite the pain, she faced her departure with the same empowerment and grace with which she had faced the other stages of her life. She was still growing and still teaching us about what it means to live a fully human life, even as it came to its end, at least in this plane. I will miss her, not with sadness, but with gratitude. She touched the lives of many people who are now out there practicing person-centered expressive arts around the world. I get Facebook messages from people who are using expressive arts to deal with trauma in Afghanistan or in the Middle East. And it's Natalie's work, speaking through the people that she worked with, that's bringing hope and help and inspiration to people who maybe don't even know who Natalie is. In that sense, I'm saying that Natalie is a cultural leader as well as a leader in psychotherapy and growth in the arts. She made a difference, and through us, her influence will carry on. And today we can give thanks for her being with us, and celebrate a life that was lived in full.
I'm Shelley Davis. I'm going to talk about two aspects of Natalie's life, and one is the the history of the Person-Centered Expressive Therapy Institute and how it evolved into what it is today. And the second is to talk about the more inner process of what it takes to be a pioneer in the field. And that comes around to us as well. Natalie and Francis started creating the Person-Centered Expressive Therapy Institute came to be known as PCETI because it was such a long thing to say, so I'm just going to refer to it like that. Started working on it in about 1982, and somewhere around between 83 and 84, it became a nonprofit educational institute. The official records are in the archives. I passed mine along to Natalie. So Mukti assures me that she attended the very first Person-Centered Expressive Arts workshop in 1985 at Sonoma State. Matt McCreary and Red Thomas they were colleagues of Carl's, and they had created a program, the Person-Centered School of Expressive Arts there, that ran for 14 years, from 1970 to 1984, and in 84, it was unfortunately ended by a new president who was very conservative and didn't really appreciate the spirit of what was going on. So they became advisors. Mac and Red became advisors to Natalie, and Red joined the first program as staff along with Carl and Francis. And for at least 2 years, maybe a little more, many fortunate people were facilitated by 3 generations of person-centered therapists: Carl, Natalie, and Francis, all together. It's a rare opportunity. Because Carl and Natalie had worked internationally, people came from around the world to PCETI in California, and participants became friends and bridges between our cultures. I started in 1986 when Carl was still part of the program, and I started teaching in late 87 when we began to expand PCETI first around the San Francisco Bay Area, and then across the country, and then to around the world wherever we were invited. We developed faculty out of the Person-Centered intern program. So among them, for instance, at different times, Maria and I and Anine worked with Lucy Barbera in New York for many summers. And Lucy went on to create a person-centered expressive arts program in the New York University system for teachers to teach issues of social justice and for therapy in hospitals. Natalie likes the metaphor of creating a fertile field for person-centered expressive arts that would keep growing organically like plants, just spreading that way. And she encouraged the authenticity and the respectful adaptation of what we were doing to the needs of each culture. Maria Gonzalez Blue likens this growth of Person-Centered Expressive Therapy Institute as a family tree. And indeed, when PCETI graduates, participants who don't know each other, when they meet each other, they tend to feel like kindred spirits because they've experienced the power of the person-centered approach combined with the expressive arts in their lives, in our lives. It changed my life. So we are like extended family and in spirit. Natalie kept teaching all over the world, and as PCETI expanded, the faculty traveled also. I taught in England with Tess Sturrock and Dinah, in Japan with Kyoko Ono, in Italy with Sara Rinaldi, in Korea with Teo Jun. Maria taught with Graciela Bettini in Argentina, with Lourdes in Mexico and in Guatemala. Christine Evans taught in Hong Kong with Fiona. A lot of these people are here. Anine taught workshops in Japan and supervised in Hong Kong maybe other things, I'm not sure. Mukti taught workshops in Russia. So the richness of this work and the growing community, and just realized I'm reading this without glasses. I can see. I didn't know I could, okay. So the growing community and the desire for person-centered expressive arts to contribute to personal growth and world peace is the dream we share, but actually running an institute can be exhausting. Natalie wanted to close it minimally 3 times, seriously, talked about it much more than that. But we found ways to keep going. We were helped by Pammy as an administrator. We found by Joseph McIntyre, who was executive director for a while. And then after that, when finances were dire, as a faculty collective with Patricia Waters and I running the office out of my home. Finally, Natalie officially retired from Pacetti in about 1999 and thought maybe she would have time for her own personal art and to see what else emerged. She then created the 2002 Carl Rogers Conference in what would have been his 100th birthday year, an event that brought much of the international person-centered community together. For years, we had been trying to find an academic home for Pacetti so that they would do the administration and we could do the teaching. At this 2002 conference, Maureen O'Hara opened the possibility of offering the Pacetti program through Saybrook graduate school turned university, where she was president. Over the years, Natalie, Sue-Ann, Christine, and I, in various combinations, taught many Saybrook cohorts, although eventually we had to move the program from there into the Institute for Transpersonal Psychology, which then became Sophia. And now the 2-year certificate program is offered through Meridian University with Sue-Ann as lead faculty. Natalie also taught classes at the California Institute for Integral Studies until she passed it along to Maria and Patricia. And now for years, Maria and I have continued to teach there. In the beginning, the program was filled with people from all walks of life who wanted to enhance their creativity and personal growth, who went on to apply it in their respective fields. The Creative Connection DVD was filmed at Isis Oasis in 1987. And seeing it now, we all look like babies. My hair was black. And it makes me think nostalgically of that retreat center with its Egyptian theme and the marvelous old redwood theater that we used for our studio and for graduation celebrations. The owner dressed like Cleopatra and was an artist, so the place was filled with her stained glass and her mosaics and temples and an assortment of exotic birds and animals. Now, as an academic university program, it is still powerful, it is more structured, and it still attracts artists, but more and more people come from psychology and counseling, I would say. Natalie was involved in the program this year before she passed away. So many generations of participants have been fortunate to learn from her in person. And following her dream, graduates offer workshops, classes, programs, are person-centered practitioners in countries all over the world. Graduates have also translated Natalie's books into many languages, and this year, Taeok Jun and Sujin Lee completed the Korean translation. These are labors of love, and as a far-flung community of the heart, it's exciting to meet old and new friends at conferences and symposia, and here now to offer to honor Natalie and her work and our relationships with her. So on a different note, sort of the inner aspect of this, for me, Natalie was a wonderful teacher, mentor, colleague, and friend. Because of her, I got to experience different cultures and meet new friends and colleagues. I will be forever grateful for that. It was part of Natalie's dream to develop a network of kindred spirits so we could support each other and keep this work going. Now, when worrisome world events happen, it touches me that we check in with each other. And after Natalie's passing, it was so helpful to feel our hearts supporting each other in this time of loss. We have benefited from Natalie's vision, strengths, and accomplishments. Her books and counseling videos will teach generations of students to come. I'm also inspired by her internal process of achieving this, the courage and commitment it takes to be a pioneer. Almost every aspect of her work involved unknowns and risks that could be daunting and exhausting. Writing books, for example, is a long process of ups and downs that can feel overwhelming and trigger self-doubt. Because she persevered and did it her own way, when we read her books, we really get Natalie's unique voice, lively, clear, encouraging, rather than just a dry academic text. Natalie is an example of what Carl wrote about being a human being in process, willing to experiment, learn, and share it with others. When I started teaching with her, I was relieved to find that I could admit that I was nervous or doubting myself. She encouraged me to be a human in process. Instead of having to be perfect or fired, I could discuss what was going on and get back on track. When we each traveled to different places to teach, she wanted us to call each other if things got tough, and we supported each other in that way over the years. In Emerging a Woman, Natalie was willing to share her personal process of going from traditional roles of wife and mother to finding her way in the world on her terms. And women all over the world have been inspired by her story. Similarly, in Pasetti, she encouraged us to take ourselves seriously and write about our experiences and trust that we had things to offer. You can do it too, was her message. It's important to remember that we're all persons in process, and at times, in Pasetti, Natalie would say, well, you can't be person-centered all the time. And I would think, well, yeah, but we have to try. And I've had to accept that both of those things are equally true. Because we all have blind spots, and when they get triggered, we can forget to be person-centered and mindful with each other. It has been distressing and humbling to see this in myself, but beyond embarrassment and regret, the issue is how I deal with it when it happens. It's painful, but valuable, because it reveals what more I need to know and work on in myself. Natalie had her blind spots, and she addressed this in her credo, where she listed ways she intended to support others and also acknowledged that she might make mistakes and she might hurt feelings, and if she did, she intended to acknowledge it and make apologies and amends. This is a reminder that having learned the person-centered approach does not mean that we will never forget and won't make mistakes. It means we have to use this process with each other, especially when there are misunderstandings and disagreements. The community guidelines and community meetings that she developed were created to address this slippery aspect of relationship and group process. She taught us that as a group or as a person, we need to let our shadows emerge and work through that energy collectively to create a deeper sense of connection and trust that we can get through it. For a long time, many in the person-centered community didn't accept Natalie's work, expressive arts work, because they believed that only Carl, the way Carl did it, was person-centered. At the 2002 Carl Rogers Conference, one group separated away from the rest to protest what they thought was not person-centered. I kept wondering why people aren't using their person-centered skills to understand each other better and to get through the conflict, or to agree to disagree. It's clear to me that when we get upset, blind spots have the power to keep us from using what we know and value with each other. There are also blind spots in the person-centered expressive arts community. One participant feels that a partner who holds the edges of her paper while she draws is giving wonderful person-centered support. Another feels that anyone touching her art is intrusive and not person-centered, and how could they not know that? With limited space at our person-centered expressive arts symposium, sometimes people rubbed each other the wrong way without realizing it until they were too upset to even know what to do. We can't always know how to get it right the first time, but we can acknowledge and support each other as persons in process, who have to keep learning how to deal with these complications in our relationships. The person-centered, safe environment, essential to feeling free to be our true selves, is a living dynamic we create together, using our hearts and our skills to balance back when we go awry. Natalie hoped that as a person-centered expressive arts community, we would do this soul-searching work together, especially when it's difficult. We are the fertile field that she imagined. We are the next generations who can teach the process of self-awareness, healthy relationships, and world peace. And in this spirit, we can carry on the legacy that Carl started and that Natalie's work expanded so successfully. Thank you, Natalie.
So in the spirit of Natalie, I would like to first start by inviting you to stand up and stretch and show some sort of gesture of gratitude for Natalie. Yeah. Doesn't that feel good? So, my name is Anine Utegard, and I'm one of the past faculty with the Person-Centered Expressive Therapy Institute, and I'm happy to be here and honored to be here. And I'm going to actually share a poem and a song that was inspired by Natalie. I'm going to share what she taught me, is how to express yourself through song and poetry and movement and drama. Natalie, I miss you. My heart knows where you hang, but my head can't seem to grasp the emptiness you so gloriously filled in this world. And no one can fill your space. If I could see you now, in front of me, full with your shining, I would hug you. And I would hug you again and again, and I would tell you how much you mean to me, and I would thank you for all that you have done and offered to us. But you're not here. You're there. But I can hear your voice as I read these words, and I hear you say, I know. I know, I know. So this is a song I actually wrote for Natalie quite a few years ago, and I sang it at another birthday, so some of you might be familiar with it. And there's a chorus that gets repeated, so if you feel like you get it and you want to join in, please feel free to do that. For Natalie. Thank you for giving to me something that I can hold on to. Thank you for giving to me something that I can believe in. For in this old world, it's so hard to find the dreams we once had they get left behind, back with the lies, deceit and the grind. But there was you, there was you. Thank you for giving to me something that I can hold on to. Thank you for giving to me something that I can believe in. You taught me to listen, to hear my own voice, that life isn't a prison, we always have choice. No, life is no prison, we always have choice. We have choice. And when things were hard and nothing was right, you came along and took back the night. You gave me hope, my dreams all returned. You opened my eyes and I see the light. You can sing along. Thank you for giving to me something that I can hold on to. Thank you for giving to me something that I can believe in. And no matter what happens beyond just today, for we know things and it just happens that way, I'll still be singing this sweet song your way. I'll still be singing this sweet song your way. I'll still be singing this sweet song your way. Thank you, Natalie, Natalie, Natalie. Thank you, oh, Natalie. Thank you.
I'll keep this short. I'm here on the program, Maria Gonzalez Blue, friend, colleague, and party crasher. I actually asked Francis earlier this week to take me off the schedule because I've had a virus all week. But here I am. And I'm not going to say too much. I'm a person of few words unless I'm really angry. So I thought, as to just leave some closure, I would just call from my memory a couple of images that I think might be a message that Natalie would give us if she were here. When we worked together, Natalie used to always tell me that I channeled Carl Rogers, so I'm hoping today I can channel Natalie a little bit. And I'm sorry, I'm not contagious anymore. Two images come to mind that really touch on things that both Maureen and Shelley and other people have said during our workshops. One was, these were quite a few years ago when I was teaching for the Person-Centered Expressive Therapy Institute. And it has to do with light and dark, which, as we all know, those are the issues that we have, as human beings, have to really be with, to bring our light into the world. It's really clear that we have to address what's in the repressed recesses of our mind, of our bodies. Natalie and I were going to teach a program, and we were setting up in this beautiful theater that Shelley mentioned. And we put on David Darling, he's a music therapist and a wonderful musician. And Natalie, I just remember she was all dressed in this light beige, And she started dancing to this beautiful piano music, and there were these eastern windows that came down, and one ray of light just shined right over her, and just this, she was filled with light, so this brilliant light all around her. And the look on her face at that moment was just incredible. I felt like I really saw her essence. And it touched me because I felt like I saw like layers back of Natalie. And in retrospect, I really feel that that's what the innate impulse of our essence is, what I was seeing. And I think that has really stayed with me and helped me as I work with other people and even with my friends and my family to see that essence, to look beyond behavior, personality. And I still see that image really clearly. The other part of the dark side, this is really somewhat humorous. Those of you who have done group process know that there's this movement through the group process that we jokingly call forming, storming, and norming. That there has to be a place where the process deepens. And often in our workshops that were 7 to 10 days long, if things still seemed a little too nice or sweet, by the third day, we knew that something was being repressed. So Natalie would come out dressed like a witch with this hat. It's something on her face, like in the beginning, people wouldn't know who she was. And she'd have this cane and she'd start poking people. And she would scare the hell out of people. But it was her way of agitating, of getting people to really start touching what was going on deeper, that wasn't really coming out. And it would help the process deepen. And then we would, by the next day or so, in community meetings, people would start actually telling the truth and confronting each other when there were issues in the group process. And we would move into the hopefully norming. There were workshops where these things didn't happen soon enough, but we would deal with that too. So I think if Natalie were here, one of the things she would really ask is that we be willing to look into this aspect of ourselves. I'm actually reading final papers right now because I'm teaching at Sonoma State University. And one of the comments that people pull out of her book is that within each of us there's a secret garden. And students have loved that metaphor, that if we can go in there, I think it might have been you, Sue Ann, who said diving into the interior landscape. If we are willing, and it takes courage to go into that interior landscape, then that's where the light is. The light shines onto those dark places, and if we are willing to get rid of those weeds, that we will find that secret garden. And I think that's what Natalie would ask us to do, to be courageous enough to look inward. And I think that's what she'd say to us today. I tell my students that I feel the person-centered process is a formula for compassion, and that in order to get to that light, we have to be holding compassion for ourselves, and as a community now, there's many of us that can do this for each other. So I think that's what Natalie would say today, to be willing to look in. She had great pain about the world, as we all do, and because of that, for us to be willing to bring this light into the world is vital now. And I know that that would be one of her biggest messages. So in closing, I want to say that I don't really have words yet for my loss with Natalie. It's really in my body. It hasn't come to the surface. It's been very challenging for me to lose Natalie. So check my Facebook page in a couple of days, maybe it's something will be there. But I want to end with these words. These are from David White. Some of you know him as a poet. He says, "The death of anyone close to us is always a form of salutation, a simultaneous goodbye to their physical presence, and a deep hello to a more intimate and imaginal relationship, now beginning to form in their absence." So Natalie is not dead. She lives in us. She loves us. And she wants us to love ourselves and each other. So thank you. And I also want to thank the family for allowing us to share this goodbye with you. And I'm glad that you are still in the world, because really, I just want to say that I know Natalie, I know Naomi and Francis and Janet. I haven't met you, but I just know that Natalie loved them so much and that they are powerful in their own right, carrying on these seeds, and I'm so glad they're in the world. Thank you.
Well, I'm up here to close and basically thank everyone here for helping to honor and celebrate Natalie. And she did have a rich, long, and greatly blessed life. And she died as she lived, with courage, much grace, and determination. She had gratitude, and she endeavored to give back and make the world a better place. Our memories are powerful things, creating the ground from which each present moment arises. And it's in holding memories of Natalie and honoring each of our relationships with her in all their complexity or messiness that we keep her with us. So we hope that you stay and enjoy the reception, which is happening here after this, and share your memories with one another. There's an art table for you to use in the hall to the left of the room. And we have guest books for you to sign and to draw in the front foyer. So may you all continue to carry the best of Natalie into the world and carry her memories in your hearts. Thank you very much.
When you said, I saw you. Yeah.